Hi everyone, welcome back to the Ed Collab Gathering, the next session. I'm very excited to introduce, we have Stephanie Affinito, Heidi Weber, Kathy Muir, and Suzanne Porath, and they are going to be presenting on building a virtual learning network for professional learning. They've got lots of exciting things to share, so please follow along on Twitter, ask any questions, participate that way, and enjoy.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start us off. Welcome, everyone. I am Stephanie Affinito, and I'm thrilled to be the first of the four of us to officially welcome you to our Ed Collab Gathering session today on building your virtual learning network to support your virtual learning. We have four of us today that are going to share our stories with you and the journeys that we have taken and all the connections that we have together. And we're looking forward to getting started. So we're going to start by just very briefly introducing ourselves. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. Obviously, I'm Stephanie. I'm a literacy teacher, educator from New York. I teach at the University at Albany. I teach elementary literacy classes, and I also do some consulting and some literacy coaching with some local school districts to keep me really closely connected to the classroom. Kathy, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Muir. I'm also someone with a Twitter addiction. I'll just put that out front right now. I am currently working as our district's literacy instructional leader. I've taught everything from kindergarten to 6th grade, and I do some writing for Choice Literacy. And mostly, though, I love collaborating with all of you, and I so appreciate all these connections that are helping to share their stories today.
And I'm Suzanne Porath. I'm originally from Wisconsin. I just moved to Kansas. I teach at Kansas State University, and I teach undergrad literacy courses and the Reading Masters and Specialist program. I was a classroom teacher for 13 years before I came to be a teacher educator.
And I'm Heidi Weber. I teach and live in Loveland, Ohio, which is outside of Cincinnati. I'm currently working with 3rd and 4th grade gifted learners, so I'm wearing several hats at once, but I have quite a background in elementary education and have been so blessed to find so many wonderful people, especially these three ladies that I'm sharing with today. So happy to be here.
And Heidi, just to clarify, you don't live in the beautiful classroom that you're in right now.
Not all the time, I don't.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start us off, and I'm just going to share my screen here with everyone so that you can see us there. There are the four of us. We wanted to put this up so that you could see our Twitter handles if you wanted to tweet out to us during the session. We have our hashtags up there at the top for the Ed Collab Gathering, and we are workshop number 7. So hopefully you'll send out some tweets during the session. We can try to monitor that as best we can in between our individual sessions as well. And we'll tweet out a few things for you to interact with also. We have our goals there listed at the bottom, and there basically are 3 things that we wanted to do today. We wanted to introduce you to Cyber PD, which is an online community that can really help you expand your virtual learning network, and is the reason why the 4 of us are here connected today. We're going to share our individual stories about how Cyber PD has changed our own professional learning and really strengthened our literacy instruction in our respective classrooms. And finally, we want to invite you into it, and we're hoping to connect with you so that we can start some new collaborations and possibilities as well. So hopefully you're probably like us, where we have multiple computers on our tables and multiple tabs open with our Twitter feeds and our Twitter decks. So hopefully you are doing the same so that we can interact throughout the session. So I'm going to go to the next slide here to start us off on thinking about what a professional learning network is. This is one of my favorite definitions. There's lots of definitions out there, but I think this one really captures it perfectly. And I'll go ahead and tweet this out in a moment as well. But a PLN is essentially a vibrant ever-changing group of connections where teachers both share and learn, and they reflect our values, our passions, and our areas of expertise. So let me come back here so that you can see me while we're talking. There we go. So basically a PLN is a supportive tribe, right, of teachers, of educators, of literacy professionals that when combined together, they make us better. They are our supporters, they are our cheerleaders, they are learners right along with us, and they help us question our practice and move our practice and our thinking forward. And with the help of technology, our professional learning network is waiting right there for us to cultivate it with just a click of a button or a tap of a keyboard or a swipe or a like of a tweet. It's waiting right there for us to connect with it. One of my favorite videos to really showcase the power of a PLN and why we need a PLN is a video that I'll actually put up on Twitter in a moment if you're interested in it. And some of you may have seen it. It's this really great video of two people who are on an escalator. And in the middle of their escalator ride, the escalator stops and breaks down. And what ensues is actually quite comical because the two people on the escalator, they start panicking. They're screaming for help. They're getting upset at each other and they're panicking that they are never going to get off this escalator. And their very busy days and the tasks that they have set are just crumbling. When ironically, if they just took a step, one step forward, one step up, then they would have realized that they could have saved themselves and that this whole new world awaits them at the top of the escalator if they just took that small step or that small leap. And that's what a PLN is to me. It's something that through the help of technology is waiting for us and that can really broaden our perspectives on teaching and education and really support us and move us in new directions to best support our students. So if I asked you to think of your own professional learning network, who would you say is in it? You can tweet this if you'd like. You could go ahead and tweet it to us, the people that are in your PLN. Unfortunately, I can't hear you if you talk to me and you say it out to the screen. But I imagine if you did, you'd probably tweet that your PLN consists of your colleagues, of your grade level teaching mates, maybe your literacy coaches or the teachers in your building. They are people that are close to us, that know the realities of our own classroom teaching and our own educational context that support us every day. But with the help of technology, we can widen that personal learning network to be a virtual learning network and give us even more support. And Crowley talks about this like being ripples in the water, that if you just drop a pebble or take a step off the escalator or take a risk and reach out to someone, then you have this beautiful rippling effect that has these wonderful possibilities for your own professional learning. So you can start to connect with maybe the next layer outside of your school, which are people that share your interest. Maybe you gravitate towards others who love children's literature as much as you do, or writing workshop, or even math, even though we're talking about literacy today. And the really exciting thing is that if you drop one more pebble and we widen out that ripple, we can actually connect with our mentors and the authors that inspire us and help us make changes in our teaching, which because of technology we're now able to do. I know when I was a kid and I wrote to the authors that I adored, I had to do it the old-fashioned snail mail way and wait 3 months or more in order to get a response, where now you can send a tweet or you can send a quick email or post something on Facebook and get an immediate response. And so once you start to make those very small steps to get off your own escalator or drop the pebble to have that bigger rippling effect in your professional learning, some really amazing things can start to happen. And so I'm going to go back to sharing my screen with you so that you can see, let me scroll through here, why having this PLN is so important and what widening your PLN virtually can do for you. And you can see them listed there, and I'll go ahead and tweet this slide as well. but all four of us have experienced some degree of these kinds of benefits. And ultimately, stepping outside of your own box in your own classroom helps further your learning, so that the most important part, which is the last bullet at the bottom, is that so that we can best impact our students. And the common thread that we have today is Cyber PD, which Kathy will tell you about in a couple of moments. So that virtual learning community has brought the four of us together. And now with the Ed Collab gathering, it's bringing all of us together so that we can start to learn from each other and work together as well. So I'm going to escape here. I know that Heidi is going to come up next, and we'd like to get to know you a little bit and see who you are and where you are. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Heidi.
All right, so one of the greatest things about growing your network is that you are meeting people from all over the world. And our technology helps us feel like we're right next to each other, while we're in reality, we're hundreds or even thousands of miles away. Now, this is where I find it fascinating and even helpful to have a bit of a reference handy. I use a Google Maps, so I know where my virtual learning people are, and I can help sort out who I can go to when my needs might be more specific. So we invite you to open up this map and share with us where you are. I will pass this along.
And I'm going to, I'm just going to show you my email too. That'll be fab. I want to talk a little bit about the PLN and finding our place in that world out there. And I know when I first started to connect, the first thing I started to feel safe doing was just listening and taking things in. But what I found was when I really, really reached out to other people, that's what made the difference. And Cyber PD has been the thing that brought all of us together. And there are certainly a lot of other groups and ways to connect. Cyber PD really started in 2011. Jill Fish and Laura Komos and I had sort of moved beyond Twitter to our blogs, and we were sharing some of the books we were reading for the summer, and we realized we had the same books in our stack. And so we decided it might be a great idea to get together and to talk about those books. So we decided to do it across our blogs. We asked people to join us. We ended up with about 12 participants, I believe, talking about Patrick Allen's Conferring, the Keystone of Readers workshop. But what we learned really kind of astounded all of us. We didn't realize the impact of that kind of learning. By reading the book and then hearing each other's perspectives and commenting, our learning was amplified, and I know we all thought about things in different ways. So next July, we decided to try it again. And so we reached out again and said, who would like to join us? And in the years since 2011, Cyber PD has grown to nearly 400 participants. And I will say that when I talk with this group, and as you listen to Susan in a minute talk about some of the research she's done on Cyber PD, it really is impressive to hear about how it not only brings the community together, but how it helps us reach out and learn even more. I think that since this time, Michelle Nero has joined our Cyber PD team, and every June, we reach out to everyone and say, come join us. What books are you reading this summer? And people share their stacks, and from those stacks, we pick July's book. The great thing about Cyber PD is it's July, and you can choose your amount of participation. So some people blog and comment and each week share their thinking in the book. Other people do bits and parts, and everyone participates in their way. I know that we've all worried as organizers, Michelle, Laura, and Jill and I, that there are so many people now, how do we keep up? But the amazing thing is the community always comes together and supports one another. And I think these three are very perfect examples of that. I think they'll tell you that people just step in and reach out and connect to people they want to learn more from. So having that PLN really pushes our thinking as educators. It's made me think about things in ways I probably wouldn't have thought about them, and helped me to grow in the practice in the classroom. going to pass to Suze here.
Okay.
She's going to share some of the things she's learned.
So I missed the original, the first one that you did, but I joined in on the next one, which was the Peter Johnston's book.
Such a good book, yes.
Yeah. And so for a couple of years, I was a classroom teacher for 13 years, and I went back to school to get my PhD. And obviously, as a PhD, you start doing some research. And I found this particular community absolutely amazing because it had such wide perspectives represented. And so in 2014, I decided to do some research on it and see what kind of information I could get from the people who are involved in it. When it first started, it was kind of scattered in lots of places. We were working through different people's blogs, and then for a while we were on Jog the Web, but then that kind of disappeared. And so now there's a Google community of CyberPD, and that has made connecting so much easier because it's all in one place. However, there's also a lot of splinter groups that have come off of it, which I was fascinated to find out about as people started finding smaller community or people that they wanted to connect with in a smaller community. They would create Voxer groups and Pinterest groups. And so technology has been absolutely amazing in developing this group, developing connections, but also allowing people to make lots of choices. And so one of the things that I was looking at, I sent out a survey through Twitter and through the CyberPD Google Plus group to have people let me know how they're participating. And there are so many different ways. So the majority of people who are fully reflecting on the books that we are reading every year are using their personal or classroom blogs to do that. And so they're posting on their blogs, they're going from one blog to another to comment. But also people who are very new to technology, there's lots of other avenues that they can use to get into this. And so we do have a Twitter hashtag, which is very strong, especially in the summer, but people check in throughout the year. And so people can start very small. When they're reading, they can post their reflections on the CyberPD Twitter. We also do have the author chat every year, and that has been, for many people, one of the biggest draws of being able to read the book and then actually talk to the author at the end through the author chat. Within the Google Plus, for people who don't have their own blogs, they can post their reflections on the Google Plus site, and they don't have to, worry about putting up a whole blog on their own. And within that space, people are also responding, and so there is that sense of community and having a conversation. There's a lot of people too, and I can't give you any numbers because, well, in many cases they're lurkers, and so they don't show that they're actively participating, but we do know that there's over 400 people that are members of the CyberPD Google Plus group. And there's a lot of, shall we say, incidental learning that we know is going on because people are checking in and reading other people's posts and comments, following links. And this year there was a lot of sketchnoting, which was neat to see. And the people who answered the survey were talking about that they did absolutely check every week, and we're looking forward to what other people had to say. And as you move from one blog to another, you see a lot of comments of people going, oh, I never thought about it that way, or I hadn't imagined using it that way. And with having all of these various technologies available to us, it's not like you remember in school and you had to do a written reflection on teaching your practice and what did you do. You get to put in links and videos and show what's in your classroom, and it's a really multimedia experience. And so when we talk about seeing into other people's classrooms, we really are seeing. We're not just imagining from the words that they wrote, but people are posting pictures of how they've set up things in their classroom. And a couple years ago, we were reading Reading in the Wild, and people posted their wild reading doors. And we started a safari to find wild readers, and people were posting pictures. And there's so many of these things that grow organically out of it, and people run with it, and they find their group, their affinity, their technology. And so it's a really inviting space. So when you look at one of the big questions, obviously, what did participants gain through Cyber PD? And what people have said over and over, and I redid this this research just this summer to get some new perspectives because we have a lot of new people since I originally did it. The biggest thing is the connections, just getting to know other people, getting to know their classrooms and their students and how they're using it. And for what people have said is when they're reading the book on their own, they don't go as deep, but because they are both having to write those reflections or think about how they're using it, they have to articulate what they're thinking about the book, but then all of the comments and seeing other perspectives is making them think deeper about the content of the book. And each of the content has changed a little bit. It has tended to focus more on literacy, but we have talked about technology and conferring and things like that. People have also talked about how much it has changed their practice, and emoticons are used quite a lot to say, this has changed my life. And for a lot of people, it is very true, because when you're isolated in your own classroom, and in many cases, the conversations that we have, it's not just learning new practices, but having the validation that what you're doing really is what's best for kids, even if your school doesn't do it. And we all need that validation and finding the kindred spirits with other people to have that support. So at the end of the day, when you're exhausted because you've had, students having choice and conferring, and you have more books than you could ever read in your classroom, and everybody's writing something different, and reader-writer workshop, and the teacher next door is just handing out, shall we say, ditto forms because they made so many from years ago, having that kindred spirit to say, I'm exhausted, and somebody saying, yeah, it is, but it's what's best for kids. So that validation is so important. We do have a wide range of perspectives. A lot of the participants within this are classroom teachers, but we also draw from librarians, media specialists, special eds. I'm a teacher educator, and one of the things that I get the most out of it is seeing what's still going on in classrooms. We've got people who are just starting out in their careers and ones who have been teaching for 20 or more years. And so there's a really great mentorship. And like I said, then things get spun off from that, and people are finding ongoing mentors that they are able to collaborate outside of the Cyber PD session. And one of the things that I've been working on lately is really kind of looking at this from the perspective of, if you remember the old TV show Cheers, where you walk in and everybody knows your name. We all know each other's name through Twitter handles and our blogs, but we have this sense that we really do know each other in this particular space, because we are talking so personally and so vulnerably about what we're doing in the classroom. And we know that we're going to be supported with it. And so one of the strongest sentiments that I got from this research is people are appreciating both the perspectives that they're getting, but how respectful people are. And even in the disagreements, we're having a civil dialogue, and not even a debate, a dialogue of, hey, I never thought about that way, can you say more? And so it's a really great model, and to let our students know, both for me with pre-service teachers and my graduate students, this is how professionals talk. They're not necessarily like yelling at each other, but this is a model of civil dialogue and how we do come to best practices for children. So I could go on and on and on because I just think this is the most amazing thing. And as a researcher, I love digging into all of the learning that's going on, and it's absolutely amazing. But I know we need to talk about some other things, so I am going to pass it off back to Kathy.
Suze, I have to say a little something. Your Cheers analogy made me chuckle a little bit because certainly everybody knows your name. And one of the things that I noticed with Cyber PD is I tried to think about that in our district as well. Like, what are the ways we can blend professional development so that people can have the opportunities that they want and find ways to meet their own needs? And it's interesting. I think community is the bottom piece of all that. For people to engage, they have to feel connected. And I think that we all belong to a lot of networks where we feel connected, a lot of different groups. And it makes all the difference. And that leads us beautifully into our next section. So I'm going to share slides, hopefully with a little bit of smooth this time. And we're going to talk about how CyberPD and other networks that we are a part of have strengthened our literacy instruction and our professional learning. I think each one of us will tell a little bit of a story about how what we do in these connections has also had an impact on the work we do in the places that we are every day, physically, not just virtually. I'm going to start with my story a little bit. People who know me know I have probably a Twitter addiction. It's probably an understatement. If we could hear the laughter, I'm sure that you would all get my problem. For me, this all started with the connections with other people. You see some of the people I follow on Twitter there in the middle, because we have a guidance counselor in our district, and she always talks with the kids about the green circle. And she tells them, you have a green circle and those are your friends, and you're always trying to grow that circle and have more people and more people and more connections. And I think through Twitter, I kind of started to realize that my connection started in my hallway, but then they also moved out into my building and then my district and then our area. I'm very lucky to be close to several districts in Central Ohio that have teachers that reach out constantly and stay connected professionally, but then this larger group too. And for me, CyberPD kind of taught me. For a long time, I was a lurker, and I wasn't really, you know, when you talk to somebody who's been impacted by this work, they have a hard time articulating it. And so I was a lurker, and I was like, yeah, I just don't get all this excitement. I don't get this BLM thing. I don't get these hashtag things, you know, I don't get these groups. And then what I started to realize, though, was once I quit lurking, and, you know, you kind of collect for a while, and then you start to think, oh, I'll send out this article I read, and oh, I'll send out this little link that I found. And then pretty soon you find you're connecting. And I think it's that connection piece where you realize you have so much to learn and things that you can share too. And so what you'll see here are just some of the things that have impacted my journey. I've talked about Twitter. You can see my blog there. I write at Reflect and Refine. And then I also I work with Mandy Robeck, and we twice a year host picture book events. In August, we have the picture book 10 for 10. And in February, the nonfiction picture book 10 for 10. But all of these things help me to get to know.
I got to stop you because you got to say more about that, because that came directly out of this, didn't it?
Yes. Mandy actually posted something on her blog about reading books, and I said, I would love to see the picture books in your classroom. And then we reached out to these groups again, and a lot of the same people are in all of these communities.
And they are an amazing resource for teachers because people talk about the books they're actually using in their classrooms.
Yeah, there's just really so much power in being able to reach out. And it's funny when you talk about books, because in our classrooms, what happens is I get some books, and then my teacher across the hall says, oh, I love those. She gets the same books, and pretty soon our building has a similar set. But boy, when you start reaching out, it's not good for your wallet, just to be really clear. But it is a great way to learn from one another. And all of this really, I think what I learned most is I realized the impact having ownership on my own professional learning could have on what I do. But then I looked at the students in my classroom and asked myself, do they have the same kind of ownership? And I started to find ways to connect them with authors, to connect them with other literacy learners, to connect them with other classrooms, because I think it was then that they started to see what I think is important. My story is important. I can learn things from other people with other perspectives. And so that transferred right into the work I do with kids. It's an addiction, I'm not going to lie.
I think it's back to me. I think I'm going to come back to you and share the story of my professional learning with CyberPD. My journey actually started as a single tweet. And it's really hysterical for me to listen to you, Kathy, of how much of a lurker you were and you didn't really get it, because I only got it because of you and all the work that you're doing in Twitter. So I was trying not to laugh and interrupt your feed on the other end of this. But a couple of years ago, I started on my own journey of trying to use technology to better connect with my students. So I teach graduate classes for teachers who want to become literacy teachers, and I have a blend of on-campus and online classes. And I was trying to figure out how I could better connect and better teach my online students through technology so that it felt more of a community of when we were meeting on campus together. So I started going out there. I started looking up things. I started to go out there on Google, and that's actually how I found Kathy. And she had this wonderful piece on her blog about how to use Twitter in education. So I did what she said, and I started an account, and I started following a few people, herself one of them, and stumbled on her post about Cyber PD. I was intrigued. I was also a little nervous. I hadn't done anything like that. I wondered if being a teacher educator, I would fit in, but I did it anyway. I took a step off the escalator and I did it anyway. And so I'm going to share my screen with you again here. I jumped in a couple of years ago, this is coming up, where we were reading digital reading, which fit perfectly with what I wanted to do because it was about infusing our literacy instruction with digital tools. And we blogged, we tweeted, we responded in the Google Hangout, and we even created a Voxer group to continue our work as well. My biggest takeaway from that wasn't just about how digital reading could change reading instruction, but what I took away that first year was this amazing understanding of how teachers learn, how teachers transform their practice. Being in Cyber PD gave me that firsthand understanding that teacher learning has to be relevant, it has to be meaningful, it has to be connected and personal. All lessons we were learning about digital reading in the text, but I was able to see come to life and to see how teachers went about that. And as they shared their process with me, I really started to see how I could reimagine how I taught my own classes at the higher ed level. And I walked away that summer with the understanding that I've posted right there, that the only way that I could educate teachers, or anybody could educate teachers who will ultimately transform the lives of their students, is to first transform those lives of their teachers, both their literate lives and their pedagogical practices, and really engage them in things that mattered so that they could see why it was so important to do the same for their students. So since then, my mission really became this, which was looking for ways to infuse some innovative pedagogy like Cyber PD, like we are here at the Ed Collab, so that teachers could cultivate their own inquiries and cultivate their own collaborations to really make some positive changes. And the experience in doing that and having people just so welcomingly invite you into that learning community was such an amazing thing. And I really walked away with this understanding about myself. Right? We mentioned that it really changes the way and who we are as educators. And I realized that I found a niche, and I found a voice where I went into Cyber PD thinking I might not have much to contribute because of my different role. But I realized that I had an important one with this group of people, and I had a voice, and I actually had a story worth telling as all of these other connections and possibilities came forward. And since then, quite simply, I've been on a mission so that I can learn more and connect with more people. And that mission that started with Cyber PD has had this wonderful domino effect on my own learning. Now in my house, we joke that the domino effect is a negative one. I have 3 kids who are on 4 different sports teams in 4 different cities. And if one little domino of how I've tightly packaged my schedule falls, we're in trouble. But here in a virtual learning network, the domino effect is beautiful. And so some of the things that I've had a chance to collaborate with and some of the things I've had a chance to do have been solely because of my journey started in Cyber PD. I took a risk and submitted an article that was published in ILA's Literacy Today magazine. It was a couple of years ago, right before the annual conference, and got a lot of great feedback, met a lot of great people from that. And from there, I actually ended up with a new grant at my university about how to personalize teacher learning even more through a micro-credentialing approach and digital badging to try to make higher ed more personalized and engaging, where teachers can take their own learning pathways to some of the content like we were doing in Cyber PD. And most exciting recently, some of the work has turned into some articles for choice literacy and lead literacy, which has always been a professional goal of mine. So it's been great to realize that that voice that I found in Cyber PD has a place outside of Cyber PD as well. And my most recent exciting, I probably will burst out of the screen telling you, is that as a result of a seed that Cyber PD planted, I get to publish my first book with Heinemann Publishing that is all about changing teacher education and literacy coaching through technology, and really introducing everyone to the idea that technology has the potential to really change who you are as an educator, and what the possibilities are. And through that, we can impact even more teachers and even more students, which is our ultimate goal. So I'm going to go back. Let's see if I can do this as smooth as Kathy did.
I want to jump in for a second, Stephanie, while you're talking, because I don't think any of that has anything to do with Cyber PD. I think it has to do with who you are. And I also think it speaks very loudly to this kind of connection where, imagine a teacher's lounge where every time you walk into it, everybody is positive, where you celebrate those steps, those great things that you have to bring to the table, always knowing there are things we're working on, but people lifting your voice every single day. Yes. That's what I think it brings, is just that, yes, I love your story, tell me more. And so many people have things that still lurk and need to share.
Right, that's a great point.
Right, is it my turn now?
It is.
Yes, it is, Heidi. Okay, being mindful of the time, I'll try to go quick. For me, Cyber PD became an inspiration. I joined the year with digital reading, and I'm so thankful for this community because conversations continue. I admit I didn't finish this summer's book, but it's on my list, and so I can go back into the community and follow up that way. So my story is a little bit different in that I don't do anything simply. I never have. So I'm going to share really quickly how my story begins with me taking on a unique teaching role in my district and really putting myself on an island. I went from teaching self-contained first and second grade into being a gifted specialist, but I'm also an ELA teacher. And so I was wearing so many hats. So while communities like Cyber PD gave me that inspiration I needed to expand. And I joined several professional organizations. NCTE was going to give me the ELA content that I needed for working really beyond third and fourth grade, because with my gifted learners, I needed to advance and accelerate them. ISTE was going to be my tech go-to for my support and innovation. The Gifted Association has really helped me with those unique gifted learner needs. And then I was always connected with ILA because it keeps me grounded in sound literacy practices. Mm-hmm. Within CTE, I was able to reach out to our Ohio affiliate, Octella, and join the executive board as an elementary liaison. But what I've gained from that is that I'm reaching out to middle and high school teachers about this content that it's new territory for me. I find that it's difficult to find challenging and appropriate materials for my young learners. And so I became involved with PBS Digital Innovators, and that merged worlds. I found networks with Edmodo learning communities, as well as Twitter and Voxer. These helped me meet the need to find resources for my students. And I couldn't have done this if I hadn't have ventured out into a virtual world. ISTE gave me the confidence that I could do things. I ended up connecting with a secondary science teacher from Vancouver, and he and I co-authored a chapter for online teaching methods. It was such an unexpected and delightful experience. Our worlds were so different. I wouldn't have met this person in any other way if I hadn't reached out virtually. ISTE invited me to do a few other collaboration projects, and one of my favorites was a webinar where I joined some fantastic folks who had been integrating technology into their lessons in some of the most meaningful ways. So creating confidence with your virtual learning network is a huge thing. With the gifted population, I needed to learn more about their unique needs. I started following gifted Twitter hashtags and joining chats. This helped me impact my students and their families. I could learn more about them. However, I do find that my go-to network at the time can change and evolve as my needs differ. And so, like, while I'm always going back to things like CyberPD, I'm reaching out and I'm expanding. I like to think of it as making new friends, but keeping the old. Currently, I'm gravitating back to my ILA networks and state affiliates to strengthen what I'm doing. My top community right there is Read, Sketch, Think, as we're exploring visual note-taking and sketchnoting as a way to strengthen comprehension. This really helps me support how reflective I am as a teacher. And then finally, I want to share that virtual learning networks can happen often when you least expect it. My Facebook has always been separate from my teaching world. It's kind of been my social outlet for all my crazy friends and family. But I stumbled onto a few Facebook teacher communities this summer, and I've been surprised what I've gained from them. So it's just another piece to, I think, my virtual learning network puzzle. And so I will end with that and pass the baton.
Okay. So I talked a lot about my personal journey before, that I'm now a teacher educator and a research, and that's who I've also been as a teacher. I was always doing research in my classroom. So the four pictures I have here, you can see me as a young, naive little teacher in my first classroom, and as a mid-seasoned a little bit teacher in my second classroom, then as a doctoral student, and now as a teacher educator. And throughout it all, I've always had that motto: a teacher can never truly teach unless she is learning herself, and a lamp can never light another flame unless it continues to burn its own flame. My professional learning network, and CyberPD is a huge part of it, is what keeps my flame burning for the work that I do. And it feeds my passion for education, working with students, advocating for students across all of the grade levels. And I know we're coming to the end, and I want to get to our very last one because we have lots of ideas. And since I talked before, I will just let you look at the cute pictures. And I can go to looking forward.
Yeah, I think we wanted to leave you with a few ideas that you could try today to grow your own virtual learning network. Not to try tomorrow, something to try today. And so based on our own individual stories, we've listed what we think would be helpful. So I started by saying that my most important recommendation would be to head over to Twitter. Just like mine started with a single tweet, even if you start lurking like many of us did and just follow those you admire, like some of their tweets, and ultimately find your own voice so that you can tweet your way to some new ideas and collaborations. And certainly take a look at CyberPD. See what we do over there, join CyberPD, and take a look at some of the other Google communities that might be of interest to you as well.
I would recommend that you join whatever your state's ed chat is. In Kansas, it's KSED chat. In Wisconsin, it was WISC chat. So find out what your state chat is. If you don't know what it is, go to cybraryman.com and you can see the whole list of Twitter possibilities. And any day of the week, anytime, you can find a chat. And then my newest obsession is Flipgrid. So I'll talk about that again some other time. But it's absolutely amazing to connect with other people, and you can do book studies and it's the coolest thing ever.
I agree with you, Suze.
And I would say for all the lurkers out there and for everyone else that you reach out and share your story. This is an important time, I feel like, in education that we really have to step up and tell our stories, and everyone has one. So no matter your social media network, whether you use Facebook, whether you use Twitter, or all the young teachers are trying to get me using Instagram for this. Whatever your network is, find it and please tell your story. We all want to hear it.
Ooh, book snaps.
Yes, that's a good one too. So without repeating everything they already said, because I wholeheartedly agree, for a different direction, don't discount your professional learning communities. Often many of them do have online places where you can find specific help. And then to add to it, you check into Facebook or even Edmodo for specialized communities. So I'll leave with that.
So if you want to, I'm not sure who had the screen shared, but we had one last slide that we thought we'd put up one more time just for our contact information. We'd love to connect with you and hopefully just see who you are and learn from you and see where we might widen our virtual learning network from the EdCollab gathering today. And I'll go ahead and tweet this slide as well.
Yes, and
so
I
follow us so we can follow you.
Yes.
Yes. And I tweeted out the link to our virtual map so that we can see where we all are.
Yes.
And I'll go ahead and retweet that as well.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you for listening to our stories. We hope that we get to hear yours pretty soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic, especially coming from, I'm checking in from Guatemala. I know that there's people all around the world listening. It's very exciting, and I totally agree. I'm a full-on Twitter lurker. It's how I get so many good ideas, and now I have so many more to pull from. So thank you so much. The next session will be starting in about 10 minutes, and Rachel Gabriel will be presenting on demonstrating and finding key ingredients of effective literacy instruction. And Chris Lehman will be sharing a recorded session, which is focusing on learning with the Educator Collaborative in 2017, 2018, and using literacy to build a world where every learner thrives. So I hope everyone can check in on those, and the rest of the day, enjoy.
Thanks for